Hi everyone, today we did get a really sideways choppy day. We did have a slightly higher high here in the pre-market, didn't quite make it to that 609.59 level. You can see the momentum in RSI fading a little bit, but the bullish volume came in at the end of the session, holding those lows there, expecting this to kind of consolidate and push. But let's take a quick look at all of the charts and see if that thesis makes sense with all of the data. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. In news today, you got Nvidia hitting a record, becoming the world's most valuable company here once again. Seems like the AI play is back in the news, back in the lead here for markets. And this is what you want to see if you want markets to go higher. You want these biggest stocks, the stocks that were leading us higher, to continue to do so. And it seems like Nvidia is starting to take that lead once again, rising 4%. Of course, we'll take a look at it on the charts, finishing at 154.31, above that level that we had on the charts from January, now worth nearly $4 trillion, which is absolutely bananas. And I'm not really even sure what's driving this growth here. Nvidia seems to have been priced to perfection over the last several earnings cycles, but now you have it off to the races, and people are willing to pay more for this company now than they were before. Moving over to fear and greed, 59 from a 56, a little bit of a move up. A momentum indicator continues to be broken, but strength starting to show just a little bit of pop there, not much, but it's been flat for a long time, still hanging in there. And then you can see breadth, again, still not improving, which is the concern, right? We're starting to go higher with breadth not going higher. Extreme greed on that indicator, put call ratio pulling back dramatically here. Volatility also pulling back into neutral, sitting a 16. We'll take a look at that chart later, of course. And then safe haven demand, a little bit of a move higher in regular greed, and then junk bonds in greed once again here, as that ratio is at, as that spread is at a pretty low level. Moving over to seasonality, the bullish period here for the end of the month seems to be coming true. So you did see a slight step up here today, as you expected, flat for the next day. And then next week, we are expected to see a pretty dramatic step here, about at least 0.5% to 1% on average for the next couple of days. So really nice movement to the upside if the seasonality is to be trusted. And so far, it seems like that is the move. Moving over to the economic calendar here, you can see new home sales a little bit worse than expectations. Numbers percentage-wise also much worse than the previous number, which was also revised down. So don't love to see any of that, but you can see yield numbers coming back down. It seems like markets are brushing off the weakness that we saw. Don't care about tariffs anymore. All of that is totally fine. And then for tomorrow, we have the GDP numbers at 8:30, durable goods numbers, core PCE prices, core durable goods numbers. All of that could have a pretty major effect, but economy seems to be pretty good. No one seems to care too much. And then for the Friday, you do have that PCE data and Michigan numbers. So get a little bit of a headline look at the inflation data that the Fed likes to see, their most important indicator based on what they've said. Moving over to the charts here, looking at the S&Ps, you can see we did gap higher, almost finished unchanged, up just 30 cents here, didn't quite make it to 609.59. Really sideways choppy action, did get below the 21 EMA there a little bit, don't love to see that. Really wanted to see it hold here at the 11 o'clock candle, and then we did push lower, pushed right back to that level, and then sideways chop right in the middle of the range. 609.59, 604.54 are your resistance and support lines. If this zone breaks, you're looking for the 200 around 642. If you break out, that is all-time highs with no clear price target after that, as we start to get into some price discovery. But I would say this looks a little bit more like a pullback in time, and I would expect this to get a continuation based off of the rallies that we've seen. Moving over to the Tasty charts here, you can see we did push through that trailing stop yesterday, held above that level that was 605.79, and we are at 607.09. So held that level, held the 8 EMA, everything says bullish here. Saw very, very little volume on the session, don't love to see that. And then you can see it here on the hourly, pulled back, almost tested the trailing stop, but really didn't. And then held in this zone here, right in the middle of the range, right in that 21 EMA area. Either way, everything here says bullish still, just pull back in time, slight hesitation, and I am hoping for that continuation tomorrow. Moving over to the NASDAQ, same kind of thesis here, but we did get above that level. 538.28 was the level we were watching. That was back here from that 19 February candle, and we are above that now at 541.16, after hours price 540.95. So well above those levels. Did push higher, did pull back a little bit. Again, same kind of thesis. 21 EMA was the zone I was hoping we would hold in here, but ended up holding here just a little bit lower and then pushing to this trend line that I had. Don't love to see the idea that we are kind of breakdown, retest, breakdown here. Don't love that. But as long as we hold support here, then we're in good shape, still expecting to continue higher from there. But for now, it does show just a little bit of hesitation. Same kind of thesis as the SPY charts, but I would argue this is a little bit more bullish. We held more of the gains here today, dipped a little bit, filled the gap. Want to see this continue here as long as that 21 EMA holds there at 540.73, and then like I said, the level 538.28. Then moving over here to the Qs on the hourly chart, you can see we again held that trailing stop on the hourly, no issues with any of that. Still sitting right at that 8 EMA, 540.94. Want to see it hold that zone and push to the upper ATR band. That would be 543 in the short term. I think we can get up there, 533.80. And then looking at that 4-hour chart, again, we're just a little extended short term. Want to see this kind of pull back in time, watch these things kind of catch up, and then look for that bigger continuation. As long as everything looks strong here and we're still holding structure, I'm not too worried about it. And that is still true across the board. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, these were not nearly as good. You can see the Russell tried to go to that level, and it did once again for 214.79, and then we had a big down candle right to the level here, 211.88, closed at 211.97. We're right at it in the after hours. Want to see this zone hold? Is this a double top? Is this kind of a pullback? Momentum's a little bit bearish there. Critical level to 11.88. Need that to hold tomorrow. If that goes, there's a strong possibility this goes back down to 208 back here. And this is kind of a high, lower high setup. Couldn't get above the 200. Didn't even test it on this touch versus the previous. So don't love to see that. This is going to be dictated by some of those data pieces coming in tomorrow, especially GDP, I think could be interesting for the Russell. And then you can see the Dow, big hesitation, quarter point down or so. Couldn't quite get to that 432.78 area. So big tech leading markets higher. Russell did not participate in that today. Moving over to Mag 7 here. Mag 7 ended up negative on the day, which is bananas. Really surprising considering how strong the SPY and the NASDAQ were today. Down almost a quarter point. Could not get to that next level that we wrote on there yesterday. 330.67. That was kind of the consolidation high. You did have a couple of pins to the upside, but you can see a test here, January, multiple tests here, February, big test on that 19 February candle before we had that big sell. So definitely interesting. We're right here. Does this push through that level? We're not sure yet. Momentum still a little bit bullish. RSI still a little bit bullish, but big hesitation, surprisingly so, considering how strong Nvidia was here today. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft. Apple up about 0.5%. This actually looks quite a bit better than I thought that it would here today. Tried to go higher and it couldn't, but it did hold the 21 EMA in here at 200.05. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish. I could see why some traders might be looking for this to kind of rally into this kind of 207.14 area. I've been pretty bearish on here, and you can see high, lower high, lower high, lower high potential with a nice flat bottom. Definitely interesting. That's a little bit bearish, but right now we do have a bit of a retest here. If it holds that 21 EMA, that could be a nice continuation into this zone, something to watch for. And then looking at Microsoft, again, nothing changing with this thesis. Straight up and to the right here. So no movement at all, just continuing to that upper right corner. Moving over to Tesla and Nvidia. Tesla had that massive news on their self-driving. They had a really powerful candle, and we have now round-tripped all of that move right back to that level at 324.47. We're right there. Did hold that level on a closing basis, but momentum back to bearish RSI in the zone where it needs to hold, or it's going to break down to some lower levels, in my opinion. And then you got Nvidia, absolutely massive. Finally went to that 149.65 level that we had on the charts here. You can see that was an important level, but now we are above all of those levels. Continuing after hours, we closed on the high, and that is a very bullish setup. So Nvidia continues to be an absolute rocket ship. Moving over to staples and discretionary. Staples sold off a lot, 1.34%. Big sell, more of a sell than I would have expected. Clean cut through the level at 80.54 and the trend line here, looking for 79.90 as your next zone. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish. This seems to be rolling here and accelerating to the downside, not what you would want to see. Not shocking to see staples going a little bit lower, but not this quickly. At least that's not what I would want to see. And then looking at discretionaries, bit of an everything sell there as well. So really we're seeing a little bit of narrowing of markets, in my opinion. Mag 7 not going much higher. Nvidia going a lot higher. Want to see where this growth is coming from. Let's take a quick look at Breadth. Moving over to Breadth, this is very much the concern as well here. You can see we did get that spike up yesterday on the big move, but now Breadth is fading once again, continuing here. If we cut below the 62.25 area, I think you might have to flip bearish. A lot of the structures are still bullish, just like we talked about, but momentum here, bearish, RSI, bearish. 20-day Breadth, not really changing a whole lot. Did pull back slightly, but still in the middle of this range range that we've been in between this kind of 41 and 68 area. Not a ton of movement here, but this 50-day movement, don't love this. You can see high, kind of lower high structure, maybe low, lower low, potentially lower low here. And those indicators definitely bearish. So watching this one closely here over the next couple days. Moving over to the dollar here, you can see a nice little rally overnight and then gave it all back and then some into the open here today and through the session. You got a lower low there. Still looking for the dollar to get to that 96.85 level here. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish. Want to see a touch there. In terms of divergence though, you still see kind of a low, slightly higher low here. Not a lot of divergence with the same price action here. So you could argue maybe slightly bullish off of that, but structurally still very much bearish. And you want to see equities going higher and the dollar going lower. That means bigger allocations to equities, which is happening for now, but not super convincingly. Moving over to bonds. Bonds continue to look really, really good here. JNK still up above that 96.51 level. Didn't go a ton higher here today, but want to see it push to 97.69. TLT continues to be bullish here as well, up 0.13 or 11 cents on the day. Again, expecting this to push to that 144 at a minimum at 88.59. Ultimately, kind of medium term, looking for this to push back towards that 100 level. The same zone we were in just in September of last year. Had this long downtrending structure. Maybe this is kind of a left shoulder head, right shoulder potentially still to happen, but I would argue this is starting to curve up here. I've been bullish on TLT for a long time, continues to be bullish for me, and it still looks good based on today's structure. Moving over to the volatility index here, you can see this continues to sell towards that trend line. The trend line is what we're looking for. That is around this kind of 1597, 16 area, momentum bearish, RSI bearish. So continuing to look for that. Same thesis as yesterday, continues to sell, expecting more sell tomorrow. Moving over to my accounts, I ended up down just a smidgen, made money on the Qs. That's down just a little bit in the after hours. I think a better position here, honestly, would be a strangle to have some puts on and just roll those puts out to make a little bit of credit on the daily sessions. There's not a lot of movement, but there's also not a lot of credits on those, so don't love that trade either, but not loving the shares. You can see nice little profit still on the shares, and then I have that covered call on here, which is in a small loser. Not super worried about that. Plenty of room in both directions, plenty of time on that as well. And then the Russell, I rolled these down and out just a little bit. Small debits on that, don't love it, but either way, good position. The Russell is down just a smidge in after hours, pretty much right at my break even here for this 213 for a dollar credit. So that is effectively a 212 buy price, and then 212 here for a dollar. That's a 211 buy price for 2 days from now. I'm going to try to play a little bit of defense here and see how that works out. Again, if that 211 zone goes, I think it's 211.88. That is going to be a little bit concerning because the next zone is around 208. Do we see a structural break on the Russell? Something I am watching for very, very closely. I won't continue to roll this out if we do see that structural break. Let me know down in the comments section what you think of Nvidia. Is that the only stock that you should be in right now? Should we super concentrate into the semiconductor tech AI space once again, as everything else seems to be fading into the background? Let me know. Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.